Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episodes of Big Sky. This was a back-to-back episode situation, so I'm going to be talking about these episodes one at a time because I'm watching them one at a time. So I'm going to first share my thoughts about episode 10, and then, obviously in the same recording, at least when I edit this all together, I'll jump to my thoughts about episode 11. If you want to just jump straight to episode 11, time codes are included in the description down below. Nevertheless, we are starting off, interestingly enough, it's been 3 months. Ronald's kind of moved on, kind of created a new life for himself. He's a new person. Arthur, he's in a relationship with a woman named Scarlett who has a daughter, and you're like, oh, I guess for him it's like, now he gets to have that happy life that, it's hard to say whether, like, he thinks that by doing this, he can, like, move past his past and it's like, oh, I got away with everything. Now I have a fresh start. Or whether, like, because it's something that comes up later on about kind of, like, his compulsions and his need. Like, there's, the whole conversation about needing to understand Ronald's past to understand where he is and what he's going to do next. So it's interesting whether, obviously, things get complicated for him when, like, oh, Scarlett's sister comes on, and he was like, wait, I thought you didn't talk to your family. I think for him, it's like, the less people that know about him, and because the moment he found out, like, oh, wait, my sister Mary probably found out because, like, people in town probably saw us together, so it's a situation of, he's trying to keep it low-key, he's not trying to be on any, surveillance cameras or anything like that, but also at the same time, it's like, less people that know him, because his face is kind of, I'd assume he's still in Montana somewhere because they didn't specify, like, oh, he's somewhere else. So it's like he's somewhere else in the state. He probably didn't really have an opportunity to, like, bounce the state yet. The fact is that he wants to stay so close, I think, speaks volumes. He wants to be far enough away not to get caught, but also his compulsions, like, it seems like the person he's more obsessed with is Jerry. It seems like something about Jerry, I guess because maybe Jerry reminds him of someone a long time ago that he really liked, and that's why he's kind of latching on to Jerry like he is. I don't 100% know what to kind of make of it, but it's just interesting that he's doing what he's doing. Mary's going to be an issue, because she's like, yeah, he seems like a good boy. He's like, he seems so familiar. I'm like, yep, I get the feeling like, Arthur, or rather, Ronald, is going to make her disappear. I think he's going to end up killing her because she's the nosy type. As Scarlett said, she's a gossiping type, so you can already see the writing on the wall. It's like, oh, that's not going to be good. So we'll see what kind of goes down on the front. But, it's been 3 months, so it's interesting enough to see, like, obviously Cassie and Jenny, working on other cases. And I think that was something I was so curious about, like, when Ronald got away. I'm like, Rick is dead. Where's this story going to go? Obviously, it's still going to be about tracking down Ronald, but at the same time, like, they still have other jobs to do because it's like, well, we need to pay the bills and, there's plenty of work coming our way as PIs. So, but obviously for Cassie, this case is important to both of them. It's also because, like, right, regardless of whether Ronald was the one who killed Cody or not, he was still a part of this kidnapping all those girls. So it's not like he's an innocent person in all of this, so they want to bring him to justice. It's like they're both thinking about it day in and day out. But even Cassie had that moment at the beginning. She was seeing the truck pass by, and then she was kind of thinking of, like, Ronald smashing the glass of the truck and, like, started choking her, just because it's like he's out there somewhere and we just don't know where he is, what he's up to. And now they're handling cases where we're like handling a domestic case because, like, a wife thinks her husband's cheating on her, and it's like, we went from working on something like that, which we should still be focusing on Ronald because he's out there somewhere, but instead we're working a case like this. So, but obviously this case ends up turning out to be a lot more than they were expected because they're tracking down Alan, which played by Michael Eklund, which is so interesting because I just saw him on most recently the first episode of Debris. So it's interesting, like, oh wow, So at first it's like, oh, is he having an affair? But then, like, two kind of scary looking dudes roll up, and it turns out he was making some kind of deal. At first you're like, is it drugs or something? I even love, like, Jenny and Cassie bust in, and it's like, okay, how about we all walk away, pretend like we forget each other's faces, and we can kind of go away from this situation, because obviously they're not actual cops, they're private investigators, so they kind of really have the authority to really do anything. And so it's like, also, we don't have to end this in a shooting match. Like, we can all kind of walk away. Also, that dude that they later on named the Snail, I thought was so interesting, like, the weapon he has. Like, we never actually got to see what it is, but apparently that's his signature. I love that it's such an inconvenient thing to, like, use as, like, your go-to. It's almost like a mob thing almost. I mean, he's like a gun for hire type of situation. He's a henchman lackey type of thing, but it's still like, it's like a mobster who has their signature thing, and it's just like, but it's such an inconvenient like thing to tote around, but I guess it's very menacing and stuff like that. So I guess, it serves its purpose as being both a deadly weapon but also a deterrent, because it's scare the crap out of people. Like I said, I thought it was really interesting that this case ended up being something much larger than they initially thought it was. That basically Alan got mixed up in this wrong dealing type of stuff. They're trying to let his wife Naomi know what's what, but then like her dad Bruce is kind of like, I didn't tell my daughter, but Alan told me he's gonna be home soon, yada yada yada, that he's selling his collectibles and she knows how important those collectibles are to him, so I don't want. And it's like, yeah, men kind of drawing guns on us for collectibles, I don't see that happening. And he's trying to be nonchalant about it, but it's like Cassie nor Jenny are like buying that BS. They're like, yeah, there's something going on here. And it turns out ultimately what this case ends up being about is like essentially horse semen. That basically a particular horses, like obviously it's like you can like get certain breeds of horses, like especially like winning race winning horses type of things. You get like their stock and you basically make a killing like that, and that's what Alan was selling. And it turns out Bruce is the one behind this, because it turns out Alan has been calling Bruce for like the past 24 hours and stuff like that. Because the way Bruce was like, Alan, they're like, yeah, where's Alan? He's like, he's coming home, and just kind of leaves it at that. It's like super shady, because he tried to make it sound later on like, oh no, like obviously those were my people that kind of got the samples. So I mean, technically it's not a crime that I did what I did, but it's still like, shut up. Like basically Jenny ended up having to shoot that dude, which that's a whole tragic thing of like, yeah, like I wasn't expecting that, where it's like, oh, your significant others, that's, and immediately it's like, oh, his significant other gets killed. We never actually found out. I guess like the sheet and everything, I guess he wrapped up his body and I guess was planning, either buried him somewhere or something. I don't know. I guess he didn't want the police to have his body. Maybe there's something deeper to that. It's just like, it's so interesting that he got rid of, like he didn't leave, but I guess it's like, I love you, and closed his eyes and everything, so I guess it's because I love you so much, I'm not going to just leave you here to be sitting in some morgue or something, because I guess for him, maybe he has no family that would be able to claim his body. So like I said, we never found out what he did with the body. Like I said, I'm assuming maybe he just buried it, or maybe there's a deeper, darker reason why he didn't want the police to get their hands on the body. It's just interesting that he fixed up the scene to make it look like he put the deer or whatever like back on the wall and everything, but obviously it still had the blood. And because initially they're thinking like, oh, Alan's the one that's dead the moment they get there. So that was just kind of an interesting development. But obviously, like I said, Jenny having to shoot home dude. It doesn't seem like he's dead. I mean, they were trying to call an ambulance, so I don't know. Jenny said shot, so I don't think, because I think this is her first time actually shooting. Is that her first time shooting a gun in a show? I'm trying to remember the earlier episodes. I don't know if she's fired a gun. We know Cassie has, like, killing Rick, like, stuck with her. And it's just the thing of Jenny being like, yeah, because of all the machinations, you created this situation, I had to shoot somebody. Like, Jenny didn't like doing it. And once again, it's like, neither one of them want to be in a position where they take someone's life. Like, that's kind of a hard thing to carry. I think, especially, like, yeah, they have their police training, but even then, it's still, like, I think even then, it's still kind of a thing of not wanting to take someone's life. Still weighs heavy on them in that regard. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. Another interesting aspect to this is that that U.S. Marshal Lindor showing up, and he's just kind of like, I was like, oh, he seems kind of like super quirky, and the way he's like, nah, I like to walk, the flow of information. He actually talked about the fact is that he like specifically transferred so that he could get Ronald's case. I'm like, why is that so important to you? Because the only person that had connections with the sex trafficking syndicate was Rick. Like, Ronald's name never came up. He was the delivery boy, essentially, and Rick was kind of like top / well, I guess you could make an argument like Ronald's like middle management, and Rick was kind of like top management. He's the one that handled all the dealings and stuff like that, because I guess it's just like, he didn't trust Ronald with it. But that's so interesting of like, because that's an element they think later on too of like, maybe the crime syndicate, that sex trafficking syndicate will try to reach out to Ronald, because it's like, well, you did good job for us. Yeah, Rick is dead, but now that's less people in between us, now we can talk and do business. You've done good work for us collecting all those girls. Like, I don't know. like in his own twisted way, he justified it early on by being like, oh, you're going to be able to do what you've been able to do before, Jerry, but you're going to be able to do it in a safe environment. So in his own twisted way, he was thinking like, oh, this is something good for you. You're going to be able to do what you're doing, but safely, because he's got, like I said, an obsessive like connection to Jerry. Like, I don't know. I mean, obviously early on he's reliving, like, you know, kidnapping Daniela and Grace, and, you know, I don't know whether he's reliving it because like, oh, I love it, or just reliving it of, damn it, I can't escape my past no matter how far I try to run. Whatever I try to reinvent myself, I'm still me at the end of the day. He has a lot of self-loathing, I think, you know. Well, not think. You kind of know for sure he has a lot of self-loathing, and I guess maybe that plays a part in that. But, like I said, just like the weird stuff coming out of like Lindor's mouth and stuff like that. It's like, oh, watch out for the elks. And Cassie had to correct him, elk. He's like, right. So because elk is the plural, I think is kind of what that's supposed to be. I think that's what the whole conversation was about. But even later on, it's like he's so like lackadaisical. God, what's the word I'm trying to say? Lackadaisical. I'm butchering the word. I'm tired. I'm so sorry. I feel like shit right now. I'm sorry. Lackadaisical, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I don't know. My head's spinning. Regardless, the way he was like, the point I was making, like, the fact is he's so like chill and everything, and be like, oh, we have something, but it's not nothing, and he's just like making the paper airplane and everything. But he also goes with Ginny and Cassie when they want to investigate the snail and stuff like that, when he finds out like, oh, the snail's involved in all of this, and it's like, oh yeah, I want a Doberman or something like that, and they're like, what? And he's like, or maybe he was referencing another dog, and it's just like the conversation's so weird, and it's like, oh, your special relationship with Tub, and she's looking like, what? And they're like, yeah, you know, I get people talking or whatever. And then it's like, so tell us more about the snail guy. It's like, well, this snail guy was a dog, he'd be a Doberman. And then Ginny's like, what the fuck? And then Cassie's like, I don't know. The dude's weird. But it also seems like he's taking an interest in Cassie, where he was like, oh, hey, wait, you right? Huh? And she's like, not enough. And he was like, oh, like, it seemed like he's taking an interest in Cassie. So I'm interested to see kind of what this new partnership kind of ends up bringing. That actor, I recently saw him. I think the most recent thing I saw him in was the short-lived Treadstone show in USA. So I think that's the most recent thing I saw him in. I thought that was interesting. I was like, yeah. But other than that, I don't think she was working there last episode, but Jerry is working at the agents, the private investigator agency with Cassie and Jenny. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I think for her, it's just like she wants to kind of do some good, because I'm sure it probably helps take her mind off of Ronald, because if she just stays, like, she's probably afraid to kind of like go out too much. So it's like there she probably feels a little safer. So it's probably like a thing of like, I can do this, I can help people too, like I can help you guys out, considering you guys helped me out, saved me from Ronald and Rick. So like, I'm trying to remember if last episode, because obviously it's been a long time since the last episode, I don't know if she referenced like wanting to work with them or not. Like, we kind of got a little bit of her helping them last episode when they're trying to track down Ronald and stuff, but other than that, that was about it. And I thought it was really interesting, too, because we had this other subplot that you're like, okay, where is this going? But because it seemed like such a separate thing, because I was like, oh, there seems like there's so many storylines going on. There's this particular case, which that ends up getting resolved this episode, not unless there ends up being lasting effects from it, but it seems like a one-off case. Then there's obviously the Ronald thing, that's going to be the overarching theme but then like it seems like there's also going to be another corresponding story. There's going to be another storyline kind of being like the next overarching chapter, chapters, or rather. Interesting enough, you got that dude Horst, who's played by Ted, either Levine or Levine, which is really interesting because, remember, I brought it up before, Mary Lee's actress was in Silence of the Lambs, and lo and behold, Ted, who was Buffalo Bill, which, once again, I didn't know he was Buffalo Bill until I watched a movie like a month or two ago, because I know him from Monk. I didn't watch a lot of Monk, but I watched enough Monk to be like, oh, I always associate with him Monk. I didn't know he was Buffalo Bill, because I'd never seen Silence of the Lamb, at least all the way through before. But I was like, oh, that's interesting. Which, once again, it's like, oh, you have two actors from And it's so sad that like they're both on the show, but they're not in any scenes because the last episode she was in was last episode. I mean, we don't know if there's going to be any more Mary Lee in the future, but it's so interesting that two Silence of the Lamb alumni are there, and they're not in the same episode. Not even like, for one, not even in the same scenes, but also not even in the same episode. So I'm curious. It's just, you have to do stuff like that on purpose. That's just interesting. But Horace, the way they set up his story, it seems like he's like, that kid doesn't know who runs his county. He seems kind of like, the weak you hired a snowflake, and it's just kind of like, I guess he's kind of like, at least what they're setting up, kind of like American, like, like that type of like, all these fresh face, don't know, good hard day's work, pathetic, weak face, weak hands type of soft hands, like, it just... and it's like the fact is he made a comment of, they don't know who runs his county. So I guess like maybe he's a powerful landowner who owns so much of the property and stuff. So he kind of gets his way when it's like, I want my son out here. And it's like they just kind of have no choice to bring his son out. But what was interesting is that he ends up dumping this soil. He's like, yeah, that's the ranch. That's as much as you're going to get. So I guess like that's his dad being like, even if I die, like, or I'm going to live long enough to make sure you still never get this. Because I guess it's supposed to be kind of his inheritance. Interestingly enough, his son Blake is played, ABC-wise, played Bellfire, a.k.a. Neil, Henry's dad, Emma's ex, in Once Upon a Time. So I was like, that's interesting. A whole bunch of familiar faces this episode. So I thought that was so fascinating. Obviously, we're only getting like the first opening act to that story, but I thought that was interesting, like why Blake's locked up, because it seemed like, I guess for him it's like, you were supposed to be my pride and joy, you were supposed to be the one that continued the legacy, but I guess Blake screwed up or something, and now it's like, you're never going to get any of this land. Maybe his dad kind of disowns him or whatever, I don't know. But Blake ends up calling up, because I thought it was interesting, because obviously you had like those phone calls keep happening, and it turned like, obviously we find out it is Ronald calling Jerry just to kind of mess with her, but also I think he wanted to hear her voice. Once again, we don't fully understand like what Ronald's getting out of this, what he's like. I think maybe he gets off like the scaring her and makes him feel powerful because he spent so much of his life feeling weak and powerless. Having power over someone he really enjoys it. Hell, even like that point when like he was like shocking himself with his own taser. The moment, because like he built this life for himself, and yet it's all like he wants everything to go a particular way. He's very like weird and meticulous about what he wants, and it's like, if you don't fit a certain thing, because he's obviously it's like, telling the little girl, Scarlett's daughter, like basically wash your mouth out, like don't say. Be more ladylike, blah blah blah. Maybe that's stuff instilling from his mom, and maybe his like old-fashioned thinking on his part. Whatever the case may be, I just thought that was interesting. But it was Ronald calling early in the episode, even to the point like he smashed the phone afterwards just so they couldn't trace him. It's so interesting. It's like that that's a possibility, but it's just you can't help yourself. And I think this is what Lindor was talking about that thing that he's going to kind of slip up on, that kind of look at his past to understand him to a certain extent. It's like it's not just his mom. There might be something, a triggering event that kind of led him to be where he is, the way he is. So. But the final call at the end turned out not to be Ronald, but ended up being Blake calling Jenny. So there's some past there, whether they dated in the past or whatever. Who knows? I wonder, does he know about her current circumstances, about what happened to Cody and stuff like that? Like maybe him, Blake, and Jenny kind of go back or something like that. We'll have to wait and see. Another interesting element to the story, too, is that, like, Tubb was telling Jenny, like, do you just want to keep doing this PI thing? He's like, he's kind of offering her the job. She's like, wow, you must really need to retire if you're up there kind of crazy enough suggesting me becoming a sheriff and stuff like that. But he's trying to offer her that. Granted, she's not talking to Cassie about it. I mean, we don't know. Maybe conversation happened in between scenes, but she was like, it's nothing. It's like, I thought we weren't playing the nothing game. So who knows if she confided in Cassie about what Walter had offered her. So I think that's kind of an interesting development for her story. But the final shot is Ronald outside watching their place. So it's like, I think, sadly, Jerry's still on his mind, and he can't I think no matter what kind of happiness he has, like, he can't, like, escape the fact that the way Jerry made him feel or something in a very, like I said, obsessive way. It's going to be interesting to see where all this takes us. Obviously, there's the next episode, which I haven't watched yet, but for you, it'll be, you know, like the snap of a finger as future Michael explains his thoughts about episode 11. Future Michael, take it away. Thank you, past Michael. And now moving on to episode 11 of Big Sky. A little behind the scenes, I should let you know that episode 10 review was done like early Wednesday morning. It is currently Tuesday afternoon when I'm recording this for episode 11 because I've been sick lately. And so it's been almost an entire week. So just letting you know like how long's been in between recordings and stuff like that. But regardless, let's get into the episode because a lot of really interesting things went down. First and foremost, Ronald, or quote-unquote Arthur, his situation's interesting. Like, isn't his girlfriend named Scarlett? I'm already forgetting. Her finding a taser was really interesting. And then they had an interesting exchange where she was like, is this yours? And he's like, no, it's not mine. I was like, why deny it? I would have expected you to be like, yeah, I got it for protection. But I guess he's trying to play innocent, and I guess it's like, oh, that seems dangerous. I guess it's like, as long as he's not associated with anything dangerous, I guess he's worried that, considering everything he's done with that tasing someone in the past, I guess it's understandable why you'd be like, oh, that's dangerous and stuff like that. Like, why you want to feign this, like, I guess it's supposed to fit, like, this new personality he's kind of created for himself. But what was interesting, it was like, she's like, do you have secrets? She's like, if you got secrets, it's okay, Arthur. Like, everyone has secrets. She's like, even I like to take stuff. I like to take stuff and put it in like my purse and stuff like that. It makes me feel like a god. I was like, whoa. And he was like, whoa, I think we should be having this conversation. And then at one point, she's like, kiss me, and you can get it back. He kisses her, and she's like, she presses it, and it like shocks, and he's like, and she's like, better this time. I was like, she's better. I was like, wow, Arthur might have found somewhat, it might be a situation where she seems a little weird at it. Oh, Arthur might be able to open up to her, but if he opens up too much, she might not be like, wow, I'm not down for all that. But then again, there are women who kind of are okay with, not saying every woman is, but there are women who've fallen in love with serial killers. Like, oh, like someone that's in jail or something. So like, she might have a thing for him, like, oh, even if I find out you kidnap women and stuff like that, I still love you. You're still, and like, that might actually make her love him even more, because it might be a twisted relationship. I don't know, man. That just, like, that side of her wasn't shown in episode 10 at all. So for them to kind of drop that in there, like I said, could be completely misreading this. But for now, it just seemed a little weird that she might be a little bit weird herself. Then again, like I said, moment like the information comes out about Ronald, she's probably like, oh yeah, I'm weird, but like, whoa, you're on a whole nother level. I want nothing to do with you, Ronald. I'm going to make sure me and my child stay as far away from you. We shall see, but it's just, I don't know, man. I wasn't quite sure what to make of that. So, but obviously a big thing we're also picking up with is the whole situation with Blake. So obviously him and Jenny dated back in the day, and so Jenny's doing him a favor by coming to hear him out because this is about his case. And Jenny decided to bring Cassie along because says, hey, we're partners in this. We're going to investigate this together. So it turns out Blake was arrested for beating a woman known as Rosie. Apparently he got super drunk, and he, from his side of things, he's like, normally I'm someone who can hold my liquor. And so for him, it doesn't make any sense why this happened. Like, because he woke up in, like, I think a hotel room or something. He's like, got scratches on his face and a busted lip. And he's like, it doesn't make sense that I did what I did. So, obviously, Cassie's a little more reluctant to believe him like Jenny is. Just because all the evidence points one way. But I think Jenny probably appreciates that in the circumstances, because it might be a thing of, hey, I might be a little too close for this particular case, so probably having Cassie there to kind of balance it out. But obviously, they're getting a whole bunch of resistance when it comes to this town. Like, anytime they're trying to investigate further into it, they're getting no luck. I mean, because we already know that, like, that family kind of runs this town. Like, Horst made that clear last episode. Also, he was an asshole last episode. Oh, he's on a mega level asshole situation this episode. Holy crap. But obviously, like, his son Rand, kind of a bit of a psycho. John Wayne kind of is too. And Cheyenne, like, you could definitely tell everyone in that family's definitely got their own issues. You could probably say, like, the only one who seems like they might be somewhat well-adjusted is Blake. But kind of going back to what I was saying, like, everywhere they go, like, they try to talking to the sheriff of the town, and he's just like, oh, like, he's just kind of very, like, passive to anything they have to say. He's like, oh, poor Rosie, she's been through so much. I mean, if there's anything you need to read, it's in the report. I'm waiting for DNA to come back and stuff like that. But I'll let you know. And it's just like, and then, like, the receptionist tried to tell them something, but then a cop was nearby. And I love Cassidy just waving and be like, hey, asshole. But it's just a thing of it's like, oh, like, I'm sure the sheriff would have filled you in on all the pertinent stuff. And it's like, well, what pertinent stuff? She never had an opportunity to. She also note the fact is that their tires got slashed and blood was poured on her car. The way Rand was talking about it later on, he's like, oh, it was definitely him that was behind that. So, because their dad wants, because that's the thing that's so confusing. It's like, they're trying to prove that Blake didn't do this. Why would you want to hamper their investigation? Because I guess by proving that Blake is innocent is going to unravel some stuff, because it seems like they got some shady business dealings or something like that. Because I guess, like, the more they're looking into Blake, the more they'll be looking into some of this family stuff, and it's like, we don't need you to look into our family business. That's all I can chalk it up to, because it's like, but they're trying to prove he's innocent. It's not like they're going for the jugular. It's not like they're trying to, like, damn him or anything. Because in every opportunity, Horst is like, wait, no, we don't need anyone investigating things. Even to the point, John Wayne is like, yeah, that Jenny lady's here to investigate Blake's circumstances. It's not like Cheyenne's the most helpful either, because she's in a position of being the one that's like, yeah, I'm kind of the one that nobody really listens to anyway. Do I think Blake did it? I don't know. I don't know my brother anymore. Like, for her, he kind of up and left, and he kind of changed, because she talks about the fact is that Blake came back to town wanting to change things at the ranch. I think it's probably also that thing of, you haven't been living here for so long, you don't get to just show up here, kind of change things, especially considering how their dad is. But that's also the thing too, their dad wanted Blake to take over, but it's like, oh, now that he's locked up, that's no longer a thing. But it's like, if you let them prove his innocence, it probably could be a thing. But I don't really know all that's going through everyone's minds and heads at the time. But obviously this episode was also, a very nice showcase of just how much of a control freak Horst is. The fact is, they're playing that game, I think it's of Chutes and Ladders, and just like how particular, it's like, oh, at first it seems like, oh, nice, friendly family game, and then it's like, it's like, oh, it's my turn, we go a certain particular way, and then, and his wife Margaret's like, no, let me get it for you, and she spins for him, and he doesn't appreciate that. But then I believe it was John Wayne that was like, don't kind of snap at her like that. And Rand got tired and pulled a knife out. He's like, oh, you going to pull a knife on me? And he pulls out a gun, and I think Rand was like, oh, it's not even loaded. And then Horst ended up firing a shot from it, and it's like, wow. So he's just telling his son to sit back down. And it's the thing of, pretty much everyone in that family is waiting for him to die. I don't know whether it's a situation if he's always been a bastard, or whether just being older, close to death, made him into a bastard. Whatever the case may be. I need to look into it, though. But isn't the actress who plays his wife, Margaret, wasn't she in Treadstone as well? I think so. I believe that's the same actress. I could be mistaken. If so, that's interesting, having two Treadstone actors in this. Two actors that were in Treadstone together. Once again, not the same scenes and stuff like that, but once again, it's always interesting. Tangents and all that aside, but like Cheyenne was giving her mom a pill and just telling her, like, it's going to be okay. It's all going to be fine soon. And she's like, yeah, because even later on when she's giving him his pills and he's kind of coughing and kind of choking a little bit, and she's holding his water and she's just staring for a second, because I think for her it's like, oh, just a little bit more, just a little bit more, and she has to go, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, it's okay, dear, oh, it's okay, and he's got this look in his eyes, almost like, I know what you were doing, I know what you were waiting, you were hoping I was going to drop dead, oh, maybe you'll get what you want soon enough, sweetheart, but maybe it's a situation of, it's not going to go the way you think it, I don't know, because he does ultimately end up telling John Walker that everything, I said John Walker, nope, this isn't the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, telling John Wayne that he's going to be getting, eventually getting the ranch and everything, and it's like, well, you're going to have to learn how to be a man for yourself and do things for yourself and take care of your mama and your brothers and your sister. Did he even say, I think he said, did he mention Cheyenne? He might have. If not, I think that might have spoke volumes. But I know he said their mom and definitely brothers. I don't know if he specifically said Cheyenne. He might have said Cheyenne first. He was like, their brothers, and that includes Blake. So it's like, that's, once again, still confuses me. Then why don't you want anyone helping him get out of prison? Then he also had the thing that, like, got more creepy stuff with Rand, where he's like, oh man, that pretty girl Jenny, I remember when her and Blake used to swim naked and stuff like that. You're like, wow. He's like, yeah, I just kind of, her partner's is super pretty too. It's like, yeah, I imagine like, basically was imagining Jenny in like a pit of dead cows and like the crows and the worms having their way with him. It's like, oh, he's really psychopathic. And even Jenny, when he first got introduced, Jenny's like, yeah, that's Rand, Blake's psycho brother. So, even at the end of the episode, he's chasing her with an axe, and he's like, oh, don't you look pretty down there? It's kind of like he got what he wanted in the first place. It's like, yeah, you being here like this, it is kind of trespassing. It's like, she also has a gun, and she will shoot you, you creepy bastard, but it will probably get frowned upon in her situation, because it's like, yeah, you wandered onto their property, so you doing anything illegal is going to backfire on you. It does seem like they're potentially cooking meth, because John Wayne was like, yeah, if you find, like, don't let anyone else find out about what you're up to, because it seems like he's like, Cheyenne's running her mouth off already about all the stuff that you're doing, and if Dad finds out about it, he'll kick your ass, and then he'll shoot you. But then he was also like, if Cheyenne doesn't shut her mouth, I'll cut out her tongue. And he was like, no, you won't. I don't know whether he's saying that, you won't, because you act all tough, but you won't do anything to Cheyenne. Or it's like, no, you won't. Give me the damn knife. Don't ever threaten our sister again. I don't know how to, like, whether it's like, I will protect her. Which even she's kind of like, blah about brothers protecting her, because it's like, how are you supposed to trust someone to protect you when you just grow up with them slamming cow pie in your face? Is kind of what she was saying. So, like I said, not the most stable, not the best family dynamics as we can see. Sad thing is, it seems like the only thing the mom has to really hold on to are like the good times, because for her it's like, I always had, rather than kind of talking about like Blake's circumstances, she kind of drifted off by being like, I always thought that you and Blake would have gotten together, that you would have ended up together at the end of things anyway, So, I don't know. She was kind of more focused on that, like, I guess because even before Horst came into the scene, it still just seemed like she probably wasn't too keen on talking about that. Obviously, less keen the moment Hoist, I'm literally saying it every wrong way. Horst was, even before, he definitely shut it down afterward to be like, yeah, Jenny, drink your tea, bounce, you're trespassing. Yeah, my wife let you in, but blah, 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 blah. And Jenny just kind of stares him down. He glares at her, she glares at him, so once again, kind of being blocked at every chance, Isn't that supposed to be a big epidemic in like I guess this is the Midwest, right? Montana, like in that area, like there's a lot of that like Breaking Bad type of shit happening of like meth and stuff, isn't it? I think that might be where that's coming from, because I think hasn't Montana had like a big meth issue recently? No disrespect to anyone from Montana. I swear that's a thing, but I could be full of shit when it comes to that. So that might be where that's stemming from. I mean, because John Wayne had caught him with some earlier, and it's like, yeah, it helps me focus or whatever. So we'll see. Poor Cassie though, like she got followed by that cop. I figured that I was like, the cop just happens to follow you after you were at the bar, and that poor dude too, with being like, John Wayne, just leave her alone, and then he like shoulder checks the dude and knocks him on the ground. It's kind of poor bastard. It's like, because Cheyenne was kind of belittling him a little bit, because it's like, oh, he's not a starter nor a finisher. I bet you want to take another ride or whatever. And it's like, oh, you're kind of belittling the dude a little bit. And then, like, he tries to stick up for her to be like, oh, man, leave her alone. And it's like, you get checked by the other sibling. It's just like, oh, you kind of felt bad for the bastard. Once again, it's just kind of a thing of, like, I don't think there's... Because I think that's something that kind of applies to everyone in that town. You can't really do much because they kind of run things. So, they kind of hold all the power in town. Because it does seem like... I don't know whether it's bail or whatever the case may be. Well, I guess that explains... I did forget that Blake did get released. Like I said, I don't know whether it was by bail or whatever. But his dad comes to pick him up. So that maybe that's also why he didn't want Jenny. Well, he probably only got involved now because Jenny's getting involved. So he probably wants to talk to his son about, yeah, you need to shut down this investigation because we don't need them looking into family business. Like, yeah, but I'm trying to prove my innocence. I don't care. You'll take the fall for this, son, if it means keeping our family's ducks in a row type of situation. So, I don't know. We'll see what kind of conversations they end up having in the future and what that leads to. Because I think eventually it is going to be a thing of convincing them to shut down the investigation. But circling back to what I was bringing up earlier, Cassie being tailed by that cop, and I was like, did she? It's like, damn it, we do know she was drinking in the bar. Not a lot, but still. It's like, kind of the problem of being private investigators and not full-blown cops. And he was like, have you been drinking? She's like, no. Swerving a little bit, and she's like, I'm a private investigator. He's like, get out. You're like, oh boy. And even she could tell, like, he had his hand on his gun, and it was like, And the moment she got out, like, he got super rough and, like, handcuffed. She's like, well, what's going... And he's like, this will be a lot faster and better if you didn't try and fight it. And so he ends up driving her, but she doesn't get driven? Really, Michael? Jesus. She doesn't get driven to the police station. And it's like, well, where are they going? I'm assuming they're going to go see the big man himself, because it's probably a thing of, oh, let me show you who's in control here. Let me show you who's got the power here. Not unless it's the sheriff meeting her somewhere, but I'm assuming it's either going to be John Wayne, because he was at the bar, so I'm assuming, and he's kind of taking an interest in, well, both Jenny and Cassie, but Cassie was the one that was right there, so I don't know. I'm also kind of worried for Cassie, because I'm like, being black, I think being black in Montana, I'm sure comes with its own issues. This particular area, I don't know, man. It seems like that could be even more of an issue here, but hey, we don't know. I should also point this out. The brother, John Wayne, I saw his name in the opening credits. It's Kyle Schmidt, and I was like, hey, I believe, oh God, what was it? There's this, is it Blood Ties? It's a vampire show that he was a part of back in the day that I know him from. He was also, oh God, was it? It was the North American adaptation of Being Human. I want to say it's the most recent. I feel like there was something more recent I'd seen him in. I don't remember. Was he in Saving Hope? That medical drama? I've seen up to season 3 of that. I don't know. I swear he was in that, but I don't remember. But going back to it, Being Human, the North American adaptation, he was one of Aiden's, like, sires. Like, he's one of the people Aiden sired. I believe his character's name was Henry. It's been a while since I've seen Being Human. So, regardless, that was something else that was kind of going through my mind. So, we'll see where things kind of go on that front. We have Lindor. And this episode in particular made me go, is him and Cassie? like, it was a little flirtation last episode, more on his part, because it seemed like Cassidy wasn't vibing with any of his BS. But it seemed like in this episode, because he's talking about, like, manifesting stuff, it's like if you wrote something strong enough that you kind of manifest it. And she's like, all right, I'm going to manifest you focusing on the Ronald case. And he's like, all right. But they get a lead in this episode because he comes to visit his mom's grave. And Lindor ended up writing a letter and leaving it. What was it, like, I will always love you or something like that? I guess it's supposed to make him think it's from his mom or something. Well, because... or that it's from somebody else, I don't know. Because he had talked to Jerry earlier in the episode, and is like, tell me something that's not in the report. And Jerry talks about the fact is that Ronald, when she was changing, didn't want to look at her, but kind of wanted to look, because who wouldn't, right? As, Jerry was saying. So it's a situation of... there's a part of him that she's like, I kind of felt safe with him, that there's a part of him that just wanted to be loved. And that is the thing. Like, I think for him, he's like, whether it's just upbringing, childhood, whatever the case may be, like, something kind of got broken along the way, and he got a little broken along the way, but he just wants to be loved by someone, because I guess he never felt like he was really loved by his mom. As we saw, his mom kind of could treat him like shit from time to time, so nothing he did was good enough for her anyway, so we'll see. But even later on, like, I guess they did a little love making, but Scarlett, like, had the taser and was like, it's okay to admit that you're into certain things, and she's like, I'm into certain things too, and he was like, could you shut up? And she didn't appreciate that, but he, like, consoles her, he's like, I'm sorry, and it's just like, because I don't know whether it's really, like, a sexual thing he likes. I don't know, being electrocuted, whether it's supposed to bring him closer to, like, the people he electrocuted, so making him feel, like, helpless, or is it supposed to just take him back to the feeling of, like, these women that were under my control? Like, I don't know what that necessarily represents. So, I did leave out the detail that he slept at his mom's grave, so, and as Lindor pointed out, it was like, yep, mother issues, so. Like I said, some interesting stuff. I'm really curious to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode, which will be tonight. Like I said, it's been a week, so maybe I'll get this up Wednesday, and tonight's episode will also be going up Wednesday as well. I hope. I do apologize for a lot of delays. Like I said, been sick and kind of falling behind on quite a few things. So, but I'm getting better-ish, so I think I should be able to remedy that also. Yeah. Regardless, my stuff aside, to the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.